Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to our morning coffee time. How's everyone this morning? Okay, I see 2 thumbs up, so I'll take that as a sign that people can hear me and see me well enough. So I enjoyed having Ajahn Sona on yesterday, so it went well enough, I think. So it's nice to have an hour of his time and the opportunity for people to ask him questions. One could long for better video quality and audio quality, but we'll take what we can get. So, and as people that were logged on earlier could see, my switcher's not working, so I have to do things a little differently this morning until I figure out what's going on with that. So what's on everyone else's mind this morning? What are we at? Tuesday, July the 21st. No news that I can think of. Yeah, I see one question here in the chat, and Shira, who isn't here right now but is normally tuning in every day, sent me a question about breath meditation. So I might just go to that. And if people have reactions to Ajahn Sona's talk from yesterday or other kind of questions, I'll entertain those this morning. So this is a long kind of question. I formatted it so I could put it up on the screen. Hope people can read that. So yesterday I was meditating, focusing on the in and out breath as usual. As I proceeded, the breath became more and more subtle. When it reached what seemed the subtlest, suddenly I felt like I was sinking, diving into something. It's hard to find the words to describe it. I didn't feel my body anymore, and instead of sensing the air coming in and out of my nose, the breath was felt as a throb. Any idea what happened? I know it wasn't jhana because there was no dramatic change on the emotional level. What was it then? Warmest thanks, Shira. So Shira, this is a good question, and maybe I have ideas about what happened there, but it's always hard to pin these sort of things down. This is a very kind of common types of uh, perceptions or phenomena that people experience as the mind starts to sort of settle down, and you will get different answers if you ask different teachers about breath meditation in particular. There's a variance of how people interpret technique on breath meditation. So, but most of my teachers, they're enduring encouragement about the various phenomena that arise in the mind and grab our attention like that is not to be overly distracted by it and just to return to the breath. So this kind of sinking feeling and the feeling of the body kind of disappearing and even like it's hard to know how you're perceiving this kind of throb, but sometimes these are signs, these are nimitta, as they're called, or signs, subtle signs that the mind starts to seize upon as the mind's um, calming down. So that sense of sinking, that sense of the awareness of the body, this kind of perception of the body in space as being having a certain normal position in our conscious experience, and the kind of seeming solidity of that sort of fading away or dissolving or even disappearing altogether, are very positive signs. And even some of the subtle phenomena that comes up again. Uh, so, I always kind of delight on one level, just in a real mild way, at those things are kind of happening, but am try to careful to sort of just feed that sort of sense of delight. It's a little sign, like the scenery is changing in the right way as you're traveling down a path to a deeper state of serenity. So, but you don't want to lose the mindfulness of the breath. So, uh, so if the and what I often try to do is, oftentimes in these nimitta, the breath is represented. So, and this is where you'll get different advice. Some people uh, who have maybe a more narrow technique would say, "That's not the breath. That's a distraction. Go back to the breath." Uh, but in my experience, oftentimes these nimitta, or these subtle signs that arise in the mind, uh, are connected with the breath. One can see the breath expressed in that. And I can't tell from what you're describing there if that's what you're sort of experiencing there. Like, is it the breath experienced as throb, or can you see the breath in that? Um, and if you can see the breath in that, then sometimes you can either get back to the breath or continue to kind of focus in on that. Um, but it's really a question of experience. And when these kind of subtle phenomena kind of come up, and we're new to it, and I can't remember um, how long you've been meditating, but when you're new to it, I mean, it's hard for it not to kind of grab your attention. So, but in time, you develop a familiarity with the mind and some of these subtle phenomena, and the sense of the body appearing, disappearing, the sense of the breath getting very refined to the point where sometimes it just disappears from mindfulness. Um, in time, we get used to those various phenomena, and we're not thrown by them, or we're not overly elated or distracted, or read too much meaning into those, and learn how to uh, recognize that these might just be signs that the mind's calming down, and stay grounded and anchored in nurturing a deeper immersion and absorption into the sign of the breath. So, and there's one thing in particular about the progression into serenity is, in general, we're not looking for this very narrow kind of focus on the breath. We're moving towards a boundless experience of it. So, if the sense of the body disappears or loosens like that, that can be kind of a great aid, because then we can more purely uh, attend to just the experience of the breath, and move to a boundless experience of the sign of the breath, which can be very represented in the mind and experienced in the mind in very, very subtle way. So now, about the emotional experience, like if you recognize these as signs that the mind's moving in a positive direction or something, sometimes just that recognition can kick off um, a sense of relief confidence, delight, which can kind of blossom in the experience. So that's also a helpful thing to kind of look for in developing skill and working with the breath. So I hope that helps. Keep at it. Good morning, Kanchana. Dear Ajahn, trying to understand the five aggregates. When the sixth sense takes up a memory or a plan, I'm not sure how to relate to form. Not sure how to relate that form to the elements, as form is of the four elements. Yeah, I'm a little confused what you're trying to do here, Kanchana. So, I mean, we have all these various models for examining what's going on with the mind and to advance our kind of overarching goal of developing, uh, engaging right effort and developing serenity and insight. And sometimes mixing these models gets a little bit confusing. That sounds what's going on here. So, when the sixth sense takes up a memory or plan, I'm not sure how to relate that to form. So, like the the model of the five aggregates is just a way to sort of examine all of conditioned phenomena as we experience it, and the most important part of that experience is our subjective experience of it. And like, there's a two-part model. We can divide it into body and mind. So nama and rupa. So form and mentality. And so you're, when you're kind of contemplating the sixth sense, like that's the mind, the sense of the mind. So like the mind is thinking of body, like the body only exists in the mind. If we're examining it from mind, like the mind can think body, the mind can experience body. Not sure where the four elements come into it. So, and my sense is these models are a way to sort of start to sort of unpack and break the kind of habitual objectification and personalization that kind of goes on. So, rather than taking my body as me and as mine, we start to examine it in a very different way. Like, on some sense, we can say that's a psychological way to sort of relate to oneself. There's things I identify with and things that I don't. But with the four elements, you're reflecting on something that is more elemental, and then maybe applying that to the experience of a form. And it's a way to kind of break down the sort of sense that this body is me, this body is mine. There's solidity, so the earth element, there's heat or the fire element, there's cohesion or the water element, and there's movement or motion, the wind element or the air element. And when we reflect on it in that sense, it breaks the sticky identification of this body as somehow separate from nature. So we get attuned to the elemental. It's like, what's the difference between um, air element in this body and outside of this body. Like if you're really focusing on the elemental, it's like there's really no difference. And so it highlights how the self concept is something that comes and goes, and it's not enduring, it's not ultimate truth. It's a layer, or a sankhara. It's a construction put together. So I hope this helps, but I'm not quite sure where you're going with your question here. So uh, feel free to email me if you want to explain it a bit more in detail. I see someone has here anicca dukkha anatta. Rupa is matter. Some translate it as form, which Kanchana is getting confused with, seeing the form in memory. Yeah, that's my interpretation of what might be confusing there. So seeing the form in memory. Sorry if I'm missing that, though. If I'm missing something there. Let's see. Dave. Good morning, Dave. Ajahn, you spoke a few days ago to discourage apathy in regards to social injustice. Would you speak more on the difference between apathy and equanimity in general? Um, the difference between apathy and equanimity in general. Yeah, equanimity is the way I reflect on it is there's a relationship between um, all these different divine abidings or divine emotions that we find in the Brahma Viharas. And so, in my reflection on trying to make sense out of what equanimity is and how it differs from apathy, kind of comes along the line of thinking of these four divine emotions as being various expressions of love, essentially, and and they're all they're all empathic and sensitive to other beings, um, regardless of conditions, regardless of personality, regardless of conditions, um, shared universally. So, you know, apathy doesn't seem to sort of fit with that. And, the way I understand it, like apathy is like the inability to feel empathy or to care about another person for good or for bad. So, um, compassion is to maintain this kind of caring, loving sort of state of mind, sort of in the face of the suffering of another. And Ajahn touched on this yesterday. Ajahn Sona touched on this yesterday. It's not to share their suffering or to move to uh, pity or something like this. It's like the heart still, in the face of the suffering of others, is still attentive. It's still open. It's still empathetic. It's still caring. It's still loving. It's not. It doesn't turn away or it doesn't withdraw um, those emotions because because someone is in a state of suffering or in an unfortunate state, which is like commonly sort of what we do. Like we turn away. We can't handle it. Uh, some sense we're not strong enough um, to witness that. or to be with that. So equanimity is like broader than that, and I think of it as being empowered by needing the more profound expressions of it, needing to be powered by a pretty deep understanding of self and the world, or understanding of Dhamma. Uh, so it's infused with a kind of understanding of good and evil, that which is skillful and unskillful, the nature of conditionality, uh, the nature of karma, and that kind of a deep kind of understanding of humanity, of this conscious experience of humanity and of the world, allows us, regardless of whether somebody is experiencing um, blessings or whether somebody's in a state of suffering or there's great unskillfulness going on, uh, one is still able to attend, to care, to feel uh, something like a love, but it's a very mature and wise kind of love in the face of whatever. So apathy is probably a defensive, protective kind of move, because we lack the ability to accept life as it is, people as they are, uh, irregardless of how blessed or cursed their life seems to be, or what's unfolding in front of us is. So we might think of it another way too, like what's the feeling, what's the experience like in the body and the mind of a state of apathy as compared to sort of equanimity, which is so praised by the Buddha, uh, connected with this, the highest states of serenity and insight. So, equanimity feels still like warm and loving and lucid and clear. And I would say broad. It's just various words to kind of suggest what my experience of that emotion is. Whereas apathy feels narrow, constricted, cold, unempathetic, confused. Like, when I feel apathetic, it's like I don't understand these people. Whatever. There's like a closing down due to a lack of empathy or understanding. Whereas with equanimity, you might not perfectly understand, but there's still a kind of warmth and a trust and an acceptance of life as it is, as people as they are, irregardless. So good morning, Carrie. Can you talk about breathing technique for beginning meditators? For instance, nose only or in nose, out mouth, length of breath, etc. Sure. Again, you'll get different advice depending on who you ask. Um, so, but my standard orientation And where I started was, like, I'd say the first formal teaching I got on breath meditation was from Ajahn Buddhadasa before I was a monk. I was staying in his monastery in Thailand, and they based Anapanasati technique there on the Anapanasati Sutta. And I was taught to set mindfulness in front, which is what it says right in the sutta. So one goes to the forest or the root of a tree and puts aside worldly concerns, covetousness, and grief in regard to the world. One sits down, crosses their legs, puts the body erect, and then establishes mindfulness in front of them. And the interpretation that they advocated was that means to bring mindfulness to the front here, or to the fore, and teach to pay attention to the sensed the sense of the breath as it passes in and out through the tip of the nose. So, and that works for me. There's enough sensitivity there, and it matches some how I was described this the sutta should be interpreted. Um, it's not necessarily the only way that you could do breath meditation, but it works for me. So I sit down. I've experimented with the breath in thousands of others of ways, but this is like the main sort of way I learned, and I'd say the main way that I focus on the breath is by beginning to sort of establish awareness of the breath as it's passing in and out. And for me, noticing the temperature difference and the touch sensation starts to create an interesting sensation there, so that I can start to relax attention to that which is outside of that experience. It's subtle enough and interesting enough that it draws my attention, and I have to pay attention to it. So now, if the mind is very restless, that might be too difficult, or for some people that doesn't work so well. So rather than going like straight to the tip of the nose, many people then instruct to start by noticing the breath beginning there, like the beginning of an inhalation, and then drawing it in, and follow something of the wave of sensation that accompanies the breath as it kind of moves into the body. And in some sense, you're feeling it, in some sense, you might be visualizing it. But my encouragement would be to try to feel it, which is more subtle. There's a wave of physical sensations that accompany an inhalation. It's like a whole wave of sensations that unfold in the body as one begins to experience an in-breath. So follow that all the way in, and then it slows, pauses, and an exhalation begins, and that's a whole nother wave of sensation that one can sort of attend to. So this can be a little bit more engaging than just trying to sort of bring the attention straight to the subtle sensation of the breath passing by the tip of the nose, and holding the mind there. Um, But what you really want to do is you want to do something that helps you kind of get into it. So, and if you pick something that's too subtle for where the mind is at, then you need to sort of put handles on it or hooks on it, or find something that is easier, an easier kind of first step to start engaging sort of with the breath. So I've even recommended to people, like, if they really just can't locate the breath in the body, just to practice sort of using their hands and sort of like breathing in, breathing out, sort of connecting a little bit more movement with it, just so you can start to get in the neighborhood of this event, which is this in breath, this out breath. And you can do this for a little while. Like, I have my hands on my lap. You can't see them here, but, and I just breathe in and rotate them up. Breathe out, rotate them down. It's just, for me, that extra bit of movement or coarseness and physicality or something can start to help bring the mind to the breath and get engaged with the event, which is in and out breathing. So that's a couple suggestions for you, Kari. Try that out. So yeah, let's see. One of the upcoming jhana talks will be largely about how Ajahn Sona teaches breath meditation. It will give you another variation to explore. Okay, that's good. So yeah, Ajahn teaching on the breath is a little bit unique. Gives a lot of emphasis on experiencing it as air element. So, all right, well, I'm going to leave it at that for today. So, back to the normal. Yesterday was super normal. This is the normal morning coffee time. So, be well, everyone, and hope to see you again tomorrow. So, take care. Bye for now.